I'm Julie, Fei-Fan Balzer, and today I'm going to show you how to make a magnetic bookmark with fabric using your ScanNCut. The very first thing we're going to do is build our file. So from the home screen, we're going to choose Pattern. Go into the shapes. I'm looking for a circle, and I can see it right here. I want to make it about 1.5 inches because the magnet that I'm using is about 3/4 of an inch. Oops, I made it a little too big. No, I didn't. I can count. 1.5 inches. There you go. So I want to have there be 2 of them set. I can see them right there. And now I also want to add another shape, which is a rectangle. So you can see this looks like a square, but all I do is turn off the aspect ratio. And now I can make it narrower without being taller. I can turn it back on. And in fact, I can make them both less tall and at the same time it changes. So that aspect ratio button is really powerful. So I want to make the width about 1 inch wide, and I'm actually going to make the height about 2.5. Once that's set, I'm going to say set, and now I can see I have my pieces. So the way that I want to arrange these is 1 circle on one end, 1 circle on the other end, and then the rectangle in the middle. But I want the circles to just kiss right at that rectangle. So that's what I'm dragging around. And if I want to zoom in, I'm going to go to the editing functions, grab the zoom, grab it again, and go in there and just make sure that the circle is intersecting right, you can see right at the corners there, and go down and do the other one so it's just intersecting, and there, looks great. So I'm going to say okay. Now I want to select all of them. To make sure that I've done this correctly, I'm going to use the alignment tools just to make sure that they really are center aligned. Once I'm sure that that's right, I say okay, okay again. And now I want to weld them, meaning I want to create one shape from all these pieces. And this is what it's going to look like. Is it okay to weld the pattern? It's irreversible. Yes, that's fine with me. That's what I want it to look like. So it looks fantastic. So what I need now is I'm going to go to this resizing function. I need to, 1, put a seam allowance around it. And you can check what your seam allowance is set at if you go into the wrench tool or the settings and you scroll through. You'll see seam allowance, mine is only set to 3 millimeters, so I want to make sure that it's set to 1/4 inch. So I say okay, and now I have that nice big seam allowance. I also want there to be 2 of them, so I'm going to say okay, that's a back and a front, you can see right there. Okay, one more time, and now I want to scan in my material, so I'm going to load up a mat and scan it in. I have a piece of fabric here. It doesn't have anything on it. It's also not been ironed or anything, and that's totally fine. I'm using a super sticky mat that has a high-tack fabric support sheet on it. That's why it says fabric down at the bottom. I'm putting my fabric with the pattern side down. I have my brayer, and the brayer is what is going to make this fabric that is unironed. Essentially, I'm sort of using the adhesive to grab all the unironed parts and make them flat and straight and nice. So I'm just going to go ahead and use a lot of pressure to make sure that that's really on there. Once I'm sure that it's really on there, I'm going to open the dust cover on my machine, bring that machine a little bit forward here, load in the mat with my hands right at the front. And now hit the scan button and start. I can see my image on the screen and everything looks like it's okay. If I want to adjust or move these around in any way, I can. The most important thing, however, is where the blade is. I want to just lift that up and take it out. And instead, I want to use the pen tool. Now I'm using the water soluble pen. It has a little blue stripe here to let you know that it's water soluble. So I'm pushing the button on the back, take off the cap, drop the pen in and close it. There's a little place for the cap here. Then with the Brother logo facing me, I drop it in, push it down, and now it's ready to go. On the screen, I'm going to say okay and draw. Notice how that outside cutting line disappears. So this is going to draw my stitch line for me. So I'm just going to press start. Now that that's done, I'm going to remove the pen and I'm going to replace it with a blade. Now the blade that I'm using, you can see I've written F on here. This is a blade that I only use when I'm using fabric, just because I like to keep them separate. I am going to set that to a 5, and I am also going to do a test cut to make. On the screen, I'm going to choose OK. Then I'm going to go back a step. I want to add a test. Let's do this circle. It comes in up there, so I'm going to drag it down so it'll cut in the lower corner. Okay. Before I cut, and you'll notice that those inside drawing lines disappear, I want to check my settings. So generally when you're cutting fabric, you want to raise up the pressure and you want to lower the speed. So we're going to see if these are the right settings. So let's press start. The machine automatically stops after the test cut. This gives me the opportunity to see, yes, it looks like it came out nice and clean. So all I'm going to do is press the start button again. Now that it is done cutting, I'm going to hit the unload button and let us pull away the excess fabric. Oh, looks like this guy got caught in here. And just gently, there we go. There's my first piece with my stitch lines drawn. And here is my second piece with my stitch lines drawn. So let's go ahead and stitch it together. I have my 2 pieces and I'm going to put them right sides together. And I'm going to do my best to sort of actually line them up. You can pin it if you want. They're such small pieces that I probably won't. The one thing that's really important is I don't want to sew the whole thing shut because I have to turn it around. So I want to leave a gap, and it has to be a gap big enough for my magnets to make it in as well. So that's just something to remember. So I don't even have a 1/4 inch foot on here because the ScanNCut has drawn my stitch line. I don't need a 1/4 inch foot. I'm literally just tracing this design. So I've turned this whole thing, and I actually just used the eyelet maker that came with this to gently make sure that all the seams were pushed out. I just sort of ran it along the inside. So now that that's done, I'm going to go ahead and slide my, oops, if my magnets want to come apart. I'm going to slide my magnets in through the hole and then push each one into an end. So now I'm simply stitching that open edge closed and then just continuing to stitch around the perimeter. So here is my completed bookmark, double-sided, very cool. If I were to do it again, the one thing I would do differently is I had to be really careful when I was going around this magnet inside, and you can see my stitching's kind of terrible because I had trouble with the foot. So I probably would have stitched around everything except the opening, then put the magnets in, then just stitch the opening, and it would have been nice and clean. But you know what? Live and learn. I can make a million of these with my ScanNCut. But the way that this works is, and this is a library book, which is why I think it's a great example, is let's say you leave off here and you don't want to dog ear it. So you just go ahead and grab a couple pages and you just, the magnets stick through the pages just like that. So then Your place is marked. You can come back to it, you know, however you want. It's right there. It doesn't damage the book in any way. You can also, if you don't like it at the top, you can do it on the side instead. And you just, again, grab it, put some pages between so that the magnets hold. And you can get quite a few pages as long as you're using strong magnets. And then it's there, and now your page is marked. So it's just a really nice little thing to have, and you can see how simple this was. These will make great gifts. You could personalize them in all kinds of ways. I really love these magnetic bookmarks. Thanks so much for watching. For more tips, tricks, and tutorials, be sure to visit my blog at balzerdesigns.typepad.com, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and of course, don't forget about the ScanNCut website at scanncut.com.